So what if you were just one more action, one more rep, one more invite, one more try from actually being able to hit your goals? That is really the premise of our book, The Power of One More. This is part 2 of our 3-part series where we're diving into this powerful book that talks about, at its core, really being this emphasis of the power of one more is your willingness to do something, just to take one more action, to take one more step, to think one more thought, to take one more what's the word? Proud step, really getting uncomfortable, but willing to do it anyway, and really following through, because that could be the one that literally tips the scales. Randall, good morning, my brother. That is what we're diving into today. So we're starting on chapter number 10. If you had not heard part 1, definitely go back and watch that after this. But we are live here with our Business Leadership Book Club. I know we have a lot of people who are on this morning, but if you are not a part of our Business Leadership Book Club and you are watching this for the first time, you can join it. It's completely free. If you go to modernleadership.us/book club, you can see, I'll put the link in the description below for you guys. We meet every first and third Thursday of the month where we dive into powerful leadership books that are not only related to business, but also related to making a bigger impact in the world. And this one by Ed Mylett is a game changer, but we're going to jump into chapter number 10, which is One More High Standard. One more high standard. Dennis Waitley says, of all the judgments we make through life, none are more important than the estimate we place on ourselves according to our own internal standards. I remember when I first connected with Ed Mylett, and he talked about you are the expectations of the people that you surround yourself with. So your expectations of yourself are going to be similar to those you surround yourself with. And I believe standards are really the same way. When you hang out with people who are those one more high standard level of people, it just naturally gets you to do that too. Now I'm going to share some of my biggest takeaways from these chapters. Actually, we're going from chapter number 10 all the way through chapter number 15. But as we go, I definitely want to hear from you guys. What was the biggest aha moment for you for every single one of these chapters? Good, Julie. Good morning. Good morning, Julie. Now, the one that kind of stuck out to me is in the first couple pages. Actually, it's on page 126. It says, here's the key difference between goals and standards. Most people think goals and standards are the same, but Ed Mylett says they're not. He says, here's the key difference. Goals start out as thoughts. They are desirable outcomes that take root in your mind. Your brain either confirms these goals or they pass as fleeting thoughts. You ever had that? Where you had a goal and then before you know it, your head voice talks you out of it and then it just disappears into the ethos? He said, well, when you decide that you actually want to achieve your goals, you create standards as a means of taking the thoughts and applying actions to them. Think of standards as the performance benchmarks you're willing to tolerate. Standards are the actions that propel you toward your goals. Goals effectively become byproducts of how you approach your standards. Goals without standards are empty. Goals without standards are useless. He says the world constantly tells you to review and upgrade your goals, which you should be doing, but the secret is to constantly review and upgrade your standards. What are you willing to tolerate? What are you willing to do for that goal? He says you need to evaluate what you're willing to tolerate and not tolerate just as often as you evaluate your goals. That one really stuck out to me too, because I know a lot of people do put emphasis, especially around January 1st, of creating goals. And you should create goals. It's awesome to create goals and to vision those. But thinking about reverse engineering, beginning with the end in mind, what are the activities that it's going to take for you to be able to become the type of person that has already achieved those goals? Now, of course, there's activities that we do outside of ourselves, but there's also the personal growth aspect of it. Who do you need to grow into to become the type of person that has those goals already? And based off of that, you can ask yourself, what are the standards that I'm willing to live by? And it just changes the game when you realize that those are the standards. He says, many people fail or are miserable because they set standards that are too low for how they want to be treated. If you don't establish what your standards are and clearly define them, other people will act to undermine them simply because they aren't clear about what is acceptable to you and what is not. He said, if you don't change your standards, then your goals are irrelevant. And he's talking about here is based off of your standards, people will start to treat you differently based off of the standards that you have for yourself. I mean, here's a perfect example. I used to have a lot more people reach out to me to want to have like just random conversations with me, whether it's on social media, in my personal life. And it's gotten to the point where I've gotten so my standards when it comes to like my time management and my productivity and where I spend my time, that people don't even reach out to me anymore. They treat me a little differently because they're like, oh no, like, you're too busy to actually have this conversation, or you're too busy for X, Y, and Z, which is, there's a dichotomy there, because I'm like, I don't want to seem like I'm so busy that I actually can't help people. But at the same time, people don't bring me things that are just like random conversations, because they're like, no, he really values his time and his energy seriously. And because I have that standard and set the standards like in that specific area, that they start to treat me differently, to the point where I actually really do enjoy that I can have the time and energy. But it's kind of funny, like when you set those standards, how people now start to treat you differently because of the standards that you've set. It's also the same when it comes to my health. Like before I had standards of, wanting to lose 100 pounds and being able to eat healthier and exercise and stuff like that, people would treat me differently. They would ask me to go out to certain places. They would like be with me because being a police officer, like you have to ride in a car with somebody at LAPD at least. And I would go to like places to eat that were not really good, right? But when I started to get my health under wraps, it was funny because like I would change partners to someone else and they're like, oh yeah, we can't go there, but we can go here. And I'd be like, what do you mean we can't go there? Like, yeah, you don't eat that kind of food, so we'll go over here. And it was crazy how my standards, even though I hadn't even communicated them, because of the actions that I was taking and then what they saw, and probably from some of my other partners, they just automatically assumed, oh, we've got to eat healthier when we're with Mark, which is crazy because now that I think about it, like I'm actually getting them to level up their standards just by working with me. Now I'm thinking about that out loud. That's actually a really powerful tool when it comes to your standards, is your standards will get other people to raise their standards too. He says, okay, your standards should be appropriately challenging. You will grow and change along the way. So you should review your goals and your high standards regularly. When you've mastered a standard and met your goal, it's time to adjust upward. He says, it's unhealthy to compare yourself or your standards to others. This is your journey and yours alone. Keep it that way. You have no clue what somebody else is going through, even when they tell you, especially when they tell you. You're only going to hear what they want you to hear. When you compare, you're also tempted to adjust your standards downward to align with somebody else's standards. Oof, that one actually really hit me. That's probably why I actually highlighted this. Because I got to tell you, like sometimes it's kind of like you get a little nervous and you're like, well, like I should adjust my standards down so I can align with I don't want them to feel bad that I have these higher standards, right? And that's not a good place to be in. It's so much easier to lift people up, right? Than to kind of push them up. He says, this is unacceptable. It's human nature to compare, but I'm telling you, don't do it. So when we compare to standards, it's not only is it not effective, but sometimes it actually causes us to drop our standards lower to feel like we fit into a crowd, which is just crazy. Because like I don't know about you guys, I don't want to fit into a crowd. I made this post on social media the other day, and it's getting a lot of feedback. It's like, hey, like entrepreneurs and leaders, we're weird. Like we work like crazy. We focus all of our time and attention on how we can make an impact, and we like focus on things that normal people don't. And I'm like, I love that I'm weird, and I just want to hang out with other people who are weird like me. So if you're weird like me, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader, I'm going to hang out. Let's just chill for a little bit because we all know we're going to be talking about business, about impact, about family, about goals, about all these kind of things that most people are like, that's weird to be able to talk like that. And I'm like, well, that's cool because that's your standards, but I want to find a whole bunch of other people who want to be weird like me. And I know a lot of you guys are here on the call with me, right? And it's just a great feeling of knowing that you're, and it's weird because like even just the word weird, I'm like, everybody is a little weird, right? But in reality, when I think about that, I'm like, it actually gets me to want to find the right team to be with, as opposed to trying to fit into everyone else, which is why I've actually created this YouTube channel and why it's so important to me. Okay, so that was That was chapter number 10. Chapter number 10. If you guys have anything, Julie, Randall, anybody else who's on, share what your biggest takeaways were from chapter number 10, which is one more higher standard. And we're going to move on to chapter number 11. All right. Chapter number 11 is one more impossibility thinkers and possibility achievers. This one's a mouthful. Okay. He says the fundamental philosophy of one more combines both the acts of thinking and the acts of doing. To fully realize your best life, it's not enough to think about what you want to do. Your thinking can be pristine and spot on, but unless you put actions into those thoughts, you're not going anywhere in your life. One more thinkers also must be one more doers. To frame the marriage of these two elements the right way, I want you to become an impossibility thinker and a possibility achiever. I really love this, this kind of like dichotomy here. It's like, we want you to think of the impossible. We want you to think of like, if you could paint a beautiful picture of what success would look like, of what impact would look like, of what your business would look like, of what the direction that you're taking your family, like paint a incredible picture. And then think about, what are the activities for you to do? Who is the person that you need to become in order to make those things just naturally happen? And these two dichotomies is so beautiful, because there's some people who only take action and they're just like acting. They're not even thinking about what the future is. And then they get to that point and they're like, I've just been working my butt off and I got something that I didn't even want. I got disconnection from my family. I got unhealthy. Which is my story. Like, I'm literally telling you my story here, is because I didn't realize that like taking action, you kind of have to find out the direction you're going to reverse engineer to make sure the actions you're taking are going to produce the results that you want. Because when you're just taking a ton of action, it's great. It feels great because you're like, I'm taking action. But then when you get there, you're like, okay, this is not what I actually intended it to be. And it's because we didn't give ourselves the ability of thinking. But I've seen so many people in the opposite direction too, where they're literally thinking it out, and they never actually reverse engineer it and ask themselves, what are the actions they need to take daily? And they just stop at a thought. Like, I love dreams. I love daydreaming. I used to do it all the time, where I was literally sitting there picturing what it would look like, beginning with the end in mind. Like, if everything could just be handed to me, this is what I would want to be able to achieve. But I would stop at the action part, because that's when it kind of got hard for me, right? And my brain was there to try and convince me that it wasn't going to be possible for me. But finding the middle ground of both of these, really taking the time to like vision, to figure out where you want to go, and then think about what the actions that you have to take, is a game changer. I do have to say that I even wrote about that in my book, Mastering Your Life Through Self-Coaching, because it is not just, and like I said on the say it on the podcast all the time, also on the YouTube channel, is like, you don't get better by consuming, you get better by acting. I was waiting for Julie to actually finish my sentence on that one. You don't get better by consuming, you get better by acting. And we have either ends of the spectrum, and it's the dichotomy, just like the dichotomy of leadership is somewhere in the middle. You can't be so close to your the people you're leading that they're not willing to take your actions, but you can't be so disconnected they don't even know that you care about them, right? It's like that dichotomy is in the middle of both the thinking and the visioning and the action taking and the daily actions that it takes to get there. Okay, went off a little bit of a tangent there. Okay, there's Aaron. Aaron, what's going on? Weirdo representing. That's what I'm talking about. Weirdos change the world. All right. I don't know. Maybe that'll be our slogan. Probably not. Okay, dreams are the essence of impossibility thinking. You must be able to dream, to plant the seeds of what you think you can do in life. It's when you combine that impossibility thinking with intentional actions aimed squarely at achieving your dreams that you can become a possibility achiever. Think of your dreams as challenges that live inside of you. I love that. I think that's why I highlighted this. Think of your dreams as challenges that are living inside of you. You lose nothing by challenging yourself this way. It's healthy, and I strongly encourage you to think long and hard about what will help you find your version of riches in life. But don't stop there. To realize what life has in store, you must think and do rich. Dreams and thoughts without accompanying actions will only depress and frustrate you. So this is where Ed's talking about Think and Grow Rich, where, by the way, almost every single personal development book that's ever been written is like modeled after the Think and Grow Rich, right? But he doesn't like the Think and Grow Rich. He likes the Think and Do Rich, because if you're not out there taking action and you're just the acquirer of information and knowledge, it's not going to be able to make the impact not only in your life, but in other people's life as well, all right? All right, he says the Greek philosopher Epictetus, there we go, encourages followers to not worry about anything outside of your control. The only things you command are your thoughts and actions. We choose our response. Stop aspiring to be anyone other than your own best self, for that does fall within your control. So he talks about making sure that you realize that your actions, your thoughts, your feelings, and obviously what you're manifesting, what you're creating, are actually within your full control. Everything else is not. Watching your silent movie. This is a good one. I want to read this one. He said, if you show me your actions and behaviors, I can show you how you think. That's because what you do is reflective of how you're thinking. For my life coaches out there, and for my leadership coaches in training, trying to learn and develop the skill of true coaching, your belief is what drives your behavior. So what you believe, what you think about, what you ponder on will either get you to take action or get you to not take action. And so what he says here is that's because what you do is a reflection of how you're thinking. However, what you're thinking isn't always a reflection of what you do. This is important because once you understand how the relationship between a person's thoughts and their actions work, you can predict their behavior. I'm sure you'll agree that's a powerful tool to have at your disposal. Here are several examples of what I mean. Let's see. I can't tell if you're thinking about about going on a diet to lose 40 pounds, but I can tell you what your body will look like based on how you eat and work out. Do you gorge late at night on cookies and ice cream, or do you hit the gym or go on a run? Several tells for a woman going on their first date with a man will reveal to her the kind of guy he is and whether she should carry the relationship forward. These aren't disqualifiers, but they are key indicators. For example, does he open the door for you? Or if you're at a restaurant, how does he treat the hostess and the waitstaff? So basically what he says is we can't actually see what your thoughts are. We can only see what your actions are. But when you take those actions, we can really get in and see what those potential thoughts are that are inside there, right? And so as we're going through not only our lives, but watching other people, we can really find out based off of their actions, what is going on inside of here. And I think it's a key aspect of it is realizing that's the same for you. If somebody were to watch your silent movie, what would they say your goals are? That's a really powerful one, right? If you couldn't talk, okay? You couldn't talk, you couldn't communicate. If somebody were just watching you, they were recording you, what would they say your goals? What would they say your purpose is? What would they say your passion is? Just through your actions. That's a powerful one because you'll really probably become aware of some things where you're like, man, I really need to take these specific actions because if you were to just listen or just watch me and not listen to me, this is what I would be telling you my goals are through the actions that I'm taking, all right? That's a powerful one. All right, chapter number 12, one more habit. He says, show me your habits and I'll show you your life. Your brain understands the importance of habits because it's an incredibly efficient organ. The brain's DNA is hardwired to protect you by conserving energy whenever it can. Saving energy means that reserves can be applied to other parts of your life where more brain power is needed. One of the things that really connects with me about habits is kind of like understanding the philosophy of how the brain works. It doesn't want to do anything extra. It doesn't want to use any extra energy. So if it can convince you to just stay where you are, to not take action, to overthink, to do any of those things that don't require you to physically act, it's going to try and do that because its job is like keep you alive and to get you to survive and not use up expended energy, right? Of course, like this really worked back in the day where like food was scarce, but that's not the case anymore. But still, it'll do whatever it can to not have to think about things. Can be a good thing because if you have good habits per se that are heading you in the direction you want to go, like I brush my teeth every day, like in the morning and at nighttime and floss and all that kind of stuff where it's become such a habit, I don't even have to think about it. It's the same with working out. I like work out, I eat healthy, I drink my nutrition shake, like I do things in a row because it's just so natural for me to do it. In the beginning, it was not. It took me a long time to be able to develop some of those habits. So it's great because my brain doesn't have to think about it, it just does it. But it's not so great when we realize that some of the habits go the opposite direction. Maybe you find out like as a habit, you're an overthinker. Maybe as a habit, you're a procrastinator, right? Maybe as a habit, you're like, you have these little habits of like, maybe when you're sitting down to watch a certain TV, you have to have some kind of snack. Like there are certain habits that guide you in that opposite direction of where you want to go. And really, what was powerful for me was understanding that that's how it worked, but then also realizing that if it worked that direction, I can also get it to work this direction too, where it would be a positive habit for me to lean into, right? He says, contrary to what you believe and what you may have been told, the biggest separator in life is not motivation or inspiration. It's the habits you create to get you through those days when you don't really feel like doing the things you need to do to be successful. I remember, I think this was James Clear who was talking about that, habits. He has got the book Atomic Habits, which is powerful. But he talked about like 3 stages in order to get to a habit that we kind of like go through. Number 1 is motivation, like getting motivated enough to do something different, right? It's like this is it. I'm putting my flag down. I'm getting healthy. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm not going to let my family down again. This was my story because I really did let my family down because of my own personal health. And so I said, I am not going to let this happen again. I'm going to remind myself, I'm going to have this picture of my son. I'm going to do whatever I can to remind myself of this feeling right now. That's the first part, is motivation. The second part is the discipline part, which is like when you wake up and you're like, but I don't want to do this. And then I remind myself of my motivation, what actually is driving me, my heart voice, my son, like in the NICU, and not being able to have a dad that he could depend on because my health was in the cellar, right? And reminding myself, this is what I'm fighting for, and still getting up and still doing it and still taking action. And then it gets to the third part where it becomes a habit, right? So motivation, then discipline, and then habit. And I always wanted to know, well, how long does it take between discipline and a habit? And the answer is, we don't know. How long do you got? How long are you willing to, right? Sometimes we ask questions of ourselves of like, how long is it going to take? And that just shows us what our belief system is, right? Our belief system is, well, if it's easy, I'll do it. But if it's hard, might have to second guess it, right? You don't realize that the questions that sometimes you ask yourself are actually indicators of you forming a habit of asking yourself bad questions that shows you that you really don't believe it's possible for you, right? That wasn't a question that was going into my mind of like, how long my question was like, I'm just going to do it for however long it takes. That's just the matter of it. And I'm going to become a different person in the process. And by doing that, by pushing through, by continuing to practice that discipline, it became a habit. And now it's like, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Was it worth all that struggle? Yes. I actually remember parts of that struggle as well. But it's the same thing that I'm going through in different areas of my life now too. There's different habits that I want to get into. There's different things like maybe potentially saying no a little bit more often. Today I'm like super packed with my schedule, but it's because like I'm so excited about like, fulfilling my purpose and, getting on people's podcasts and making a difference in the world. But sometimes I have to remember that I have to, rest and recover a little bit myself. But this is like one of the habits that I want to employ, is saying no first, or at least saying, hey, let me check my schedule first before I say yes. But it's also a work in progress, just like how it was before I started losing weight. It was the same thing. All right. Okay. He says, on one hand, you view these as normal parts of your life. Let me see. Life would be much easier if we lived in a relaxed state all day long. Let me start there. Instead, often we live with varying degrees of pressure and stress. This stress can be caused by anything such as paying bills, hitting a pressure shot in a game if you're a basketball player, having a disagreement with your spouse, or attending an important meeting with your boss or a big client. On one hand, you can view these as normal parts of your life. However, in neurological terms, your brain does not distinguish between these events and treats them as threats. When we perceive these threats, our brain flips a switch, moves out of thinking mode, and goes into reflexive mode. We react and revert to what we know as a form of protection. So think about that, guys. When something crazy like that happens, I don't know about you guys, but when I was really bad with my anger, I would just react. I would just go back into that original state. When my kid said something or something happened at LAPD or whatever, it would be very easy just to go into that state because I wasn't thinking. You go back into reflexive thinking. We call it muscle memory in the police field. Is like when you've done something a million times, it's just muscle memory. You don't even have to think about it, right? Because that's what happens is when you get into that fight or flight kind of situation, you go back to your training, right? You go back to your habits and to the things that like you normally will do, like reactive, basically react to it. There we go. And when it comes to like really realizing this is the case, of course, being able to develop habits that are the habits that you want to perform in that situation is good. But also the second thing is taking a step back and taking a breath and just like letting yourself go, okay, like I'm not under personal attack right now. I'm going to be okay. Let me think about this. How do I want to respond to my kids? How do I want to respond to the suspect? How do I want to like respond to this specific, person who's saying or doing these things? And when you can take that response back, it allows you to have the power back to take the actions you want to take. And when you do that often enough, then it'll just become a natural reaction. Now there's certain areas and certain things that used to spark me when it comes to my anger. And now I have that more under control. There's other areas that I still don't have under control, but anytime that one area comes into fruition again, I can take a second, I can stop and I can realize, oh, hey, I remember this. This is the path that I can go down. And it just naturally happens that way. I really like this idea of like one more habit, because think about that. Like, what if you were just one habit away from transforming, whether it's your personal life, your relationships, your business? Because when you think about the power that a habit can have, and it will be something that happens automatically, you don't have to think about it. It's just instantaneous. It's crazy when you think about that. Just one thing could literally change your life forever. Is it worth it to put in the time and energy to be able to develop that habit, to fight against it, to become somebody else entirely different? Like, I would say yes, because I know that like my actions speak louder than words. And so by me doing it, it shows other people that it's possible too. But if you don't, that's totally cool too. You have to just be willing to like ask yourself, am I willing to find that one more habit that's going to push me over the line of success? Okay, that was chapter number 12. Chapter number 13, one more multiplier. By the way, as you guys are here, anybody else who's reading the book with me, I want to hear what your biggest takeaways were from those chapters. I know if you're inside of our app, I've been posting almost every single day about some of my biggest takeaways as I'm reading it. And can I just give you a little bit of secret? Like Teresa and I filmed a video that talks about how to get the most out of your personal development book. One of the things that I do is I read until I capture something that really like connects with me. And I'm like, this is what I need and I'm going to use moving forward. At that point, I highlight it and I stop. And I ask myself, how am I going to apply this in my life? And I don't read anymore for that day. So if you're inside the app, you actually get to experience that because every day I'll post a picture of the quote of the day from what I'm reading. And then I ask myself, how does this apply to me? And how can I move forward with this today? Because I know a lot of people just like go and they read like however many pages they want to, and there's like 42 ideas and they can't implement all 42, especially from this book, guys. This book is taking me a little bit longer than normal just because there's so many nuggets in here. I don't want to lose them. I was talking to somebody last week. They're like, yeah, my goal is to read a book a week. I'm like, are you going to be able to like actually consume that and implement that before you read the next one? Or are you just going to be the fountain of knowledge? Because so many times in the past I did that. Well, I'm trying to rush through books, and that's not the goal isn't to get through the book. The goal is to make the book become a part of you. Because as you grow and that book becomes a part of you, you become and get to carry that into every other interaction that you do. So don't make your goal to just read as much as you possibly can, but make it your goal to read the book, to take it, and to move forward with those actions. And if you didn't see that YouTube live that we did, definitely hit up our Modern Leadership YouTube channel and search for that personal development, how to get the best out of the next personal or professional development book you read. Okay, number 3. Actually, hold on a second. Julie popped up here. Julie says, seeking inconvenient relationships can nudge one out of complacency from chapter 14. Caught my attention. The book reminded me my love of one more visit with my mom prior to her passing. 100%, Julie. That inconvenient relationship stuff. But yet the relationship stuff is like really, I mean, it's such a huge deal. And like just realizing that it's sometimes the hardest things that actually do make the biggest impact is a total game changer. Thank you for sharing that, Julie. Aaron says, I haven't got this far in my reading, but hearing about what's coming is super powerful. Yes. Julie, you like the quote of the day? Yeah, me too. I actually like sharing it because it also gets me to hold myself accountable to it. And that's why I'm taking my time. I want to actually implement things. Yes, Aaron, great job. Okay. Number 13, one more multiplier. He says, how often do you come in contact with forces that transcend the tasks at hand? Forces that create results exceeding expectations? You may sense you're a part of something special, even if you can't put your finger on it. For some reason, the average transforms into something magical. He says, often, it only takes adding one small thing for this to happen. It can be subtle, or it can be obvious, producing a seismic shift that triggers a tsunami multiplier effect. One of the things that really connected with me on this, and I'm so thankful that I have people on my team like Aaron and Kurt and Teresa and Nais and Sneha, is because it talks about the dynamics of team chemistry. And what he said is 1 + 1 can equal 3. That's crazy. 1 + 1 can equal 3. Meaning when you find somebody who excels in an area that's slightly different than yours and you team up together, that could be the multiplier. It could be something where, for me, I love inspiring, motivating, giving people hope, getting on YouTube, doing videos, doing podcasts. Do not love editing them and do not love posting them on social media. But when I find people who crush those things, and I find people who do it not only better than I would ever be able to do it, but really excel at it on an entirely different level, it makes the entire team even more exponentially, makes a bigger impact. And we do that by finding people or things that they consider one more multiplier. He said, adding the right kind of one more piece creates a multiplier effect. That synergy usually defies description. Two people or a team of several people in sync with their standards and goals often rise and defeat more talented teams that don't possess those same dynamics. And I also think this is like really powerful thing to realize is that you have unique strengths that if you tapped into and you connected with somebody else who had maybe a different strength than you, could literally change the game forever, not only for you, but for them. What comes up for me is me and my connection with my mentor, Josh Coates. So some of you guys know we co-created our own life and leadership performance coaching certification. And he was for a long time teaching some of these very powerful principles. And he's like a visionary. He can come up with some really incredible stuff like out of nowhere. He's not the type of person who enjoys teaching or training to the point where people are coaching in front of him and him giving advice and direction and that kind of facilitation. And so when he approached me and he said, hey, Mark, what if we were to team up and I were to do these things that I crush and you were to do these things that you crush and we did it together like as a team, would that be something you're interested in? And I was like, absolutely. So I want to ask you guys, what is something that you would love to do? You're like, this is my jam. If I could get paid to do this, this is absolutely what I would do. And I've devoted my time and my energy to this. And then ask yourself, who is somebody that I can team up with that has different strengths that will be able to like bridge the gap from the things that I don't do well? It's so powerful when you do that because you find a team of synergy, not a team that looks and acts and is the same as you. You're trying to find people with different strengths, not the same strengths as yours. And by doing that, you create that one more multiplier. Michelle, good morning. Good morning. Michelle says, I love thinking of it as teaming up with others and other persons leaning into their strengths. It brings the power of the team so much higher. 100%, Michelle, 100%. And it also makes you feel more authentic. Can I just call that out? Is when you're in your lane and you're doing things that you love to do that you're really good at, and you don't have to do those other things where you kind of like force it, it makes you feel so much more authentic because you're just being you. And you don't try to go into those other areas where you don't have any means or any business being in them. You let that other person like rock those specific areas. It just makes me personally feel so well. Like I'm actually living in an authentic space. For sure, for sure. All right. Chapter number 14. 2 more chapters here. Number 14 is one more inconvenience. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. Man, that is a beautiful quote. Let me find one of the things that this brings up for me is today we're actually going to have another YouTube live here where I'm going to be interviewing Alan Blaine, who is a coach that helps people through adversity, and he has a really powerful story. But really, whenever I think about like leadership, whenever I think about even entrepreneurship, it's like, it's not the easy times that make us the type of people that others want to follow. It's the hard times when we stick through it, when we push through it, when we get through it, when we grow, when we become the type of person that literally has those goals, even though it was the hard times. That's like the type of people that that's when you get the type of people to come out and to follow you, because it's not those simple times, it's those hard times that prove you're a leader, that you're an entrepreneur, that you're willing to grow, that you've tried this 72 million times and it's okay, because in the 72 million first time, that's going to be the thing that's going to work, and it's going to make this huge ripple effect in everybody's life, and being willing to do that, because most people aren't willing to do that. All right, he says, if you're a leader of any sort, whether a CEO, a captain of a team, or even a leader of your family, you must challenge those under you to do uncomfortable and inconvenient things as well. It's the only way they'll achieve greatness too. But as a leader, it's part of what you're charged with doing too. Great leaders are often great mentors. You mentor people by getting them to become one more thinkers and do inconvenient things that will create personal and professional growth. But you must create a culture in your company, in your team, or on your family of doing unknown, demanding, and inconvenient things. If you're diligent in this area, the collective results will be stunning. I want to just to think of this. When you take those uncomfortable, inconvenient actions, it is the greatest gift that you get to give those people who are following you because you're modeling the behavior that you want to see in them. Now, you can't force people to do things, but what you can do is you can show up as the best version of you, go through like those difficult situations that you're asking other people to do, being vocal about it, sharing about it, right? Being a little vulnerable sometimes about things that you've gone through. And because you've gone through it, you now pass and instill that in them. There's nothing more, I don't know, it frustrating to get somebody to tell you what to do who is not willing to do those things themselves. It is the quickest way for me to like completely do a 180 and not be influenced by you is if you are not willing to take the actions that you're asking of others. And that's hard actions. It's not just the easy ones. He has a chapter here. He has a breakdown in this chapter. It says, seek inconvenient relationships. He says, the fact is that friendships and loving relationships built on convenience are actually not quality relationships. The best relationships are not about being by your side only when it's convenient. It's about being there for you when it's not, when you're in trouble, when you need help. Those close to you will rally around you and will be willing to sacrifice some part of their being, even if it's inconvenient for them. You might need money or a shoulder to cry on. Maybe your car broke down and you need a ride to and from work for a week. It could be something as simple as just being a good listener. But recognize the difference between someone who takes time to talk with you when they have free time versus someone who frees up their time to talk to you. Let me read that again, because that's powerful. Recognize the difference between someone who takes time to talk with you when they have free time versus someone who frees up their time to talk to you. Man, I can't tell you how many incredible mentors that I have in my life who, despite the craziness that they have going on, are willing to find times and ways to speak into me, to slow down and to breathe that belief into me and that hope. Like those are the leaders that I will follow anywhere. And we have the greatest opportunity by doing that ourselves, right? By actually seeking out inconvenient relationships, things that aren't 100% convenient. All right. I think that's it, guys. That was chapter number 14. All right, number 15, which we're going to be getting into next, is going to be one more and defining leadership. He has some great leadership pieces in here. Actually, let me see. Actually, we're going to get into 15 right now. One more and defining leadership. You guys know I love leadership. We're here in Modern Leadership. He said, if you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else. That is so true. Like whenever I find myself lifting up other people, whether it's my kids, family, friends, people who I'm coaching, one-on-one clients, whenever I lift them up, I always feel like I lift myself up a little bit too. It's the greatest gift that I can give back to myself. He says, the concept of leadership is as old as civilization itself, and I doubt there's a personal development topic that's been studied or written more about. So what does it mean to be one more leader? As I define it, you are a one more leader if you help people do things that they would not otherwise accomplish without your presence. If you can't do that as a leader, there's no need for you. Oof. Whether or not you realize it, you already are a leader. At minimum, you lead yourself, you lead your family, or you may also lead your family, employees, teammates, when you practice your religious doctrines and several other ways. For our purpose, the question then becomes, how can I use the concept of one more to become better at leading others? He says, just so you know, leadership is a learned trait. There's a lot of people who claim that you're either born a leader or not. I actually had somebody on my social media say that, like, leaders are born, they're not created. And I'm like, well, I was not born a leader. So, I mean, it's pretty funny, like how many people, if you start to do some researching, like they say the same thing. They're like, I was not born a leader. I was put into that situation. I decided to develop the skills in order to become it. But it's not that you're born a leader. There are some people who are born natural leaders, and that's awesome. It's definitely not me, and it's definitely not a lot of the people that I look up to, probably because they're in the same situations and stuff as me. But it's all about realizing that it's a skill that you can develop, no matter if you're born a leader or not. He says, validate your leadership by setting an example. He says, I want you to remember this. Most things in life are caught, not taught. Most people will learn a lot more in life by watching what you do rather than what they do when you simply try to teach them. Holding yourself to a higher standard is essential when you lead people. Guys, this is like the real philosophy of this channel of modern leadership. Like, obviously we see things differently, but we see things through like the lens of the leader. Like, how can I get someone to take actions that are in alignment with what they want to achieve so that they can create not only a professional, but a personal life that they actually want to have, right? That is actually what their specific goals are. And when you get really good at asking great questions and then also leading from the front, which is what we say almost in every single one of these, it is really powerful when you get the ability of leading from the front and showing them through your actions while also being able to ask them questions to really pull out the amazing and incredible things that they have already living on the inside of them. One of the philosophies of life coaching is you already have all the answers living on the inside of you. You just need a really powerful coach to be able to come out and to pull it out of you, right? Sometimes we don't realize it, but we start chasing other people or other people's goals or other people's dreams or other people's habits or whatever. When in reality, like, we don't want any of those things. But when you can ask yourself powerful questions and find out what you really want, you can absolutely reverse engineer that and then take the actions and make them be one more actions over and over and over until you're able to achieve it. All right, guys, that is through chapter number 15. We're going to finish off the book on our next live, which is going to be December 7th. I think that's the first Thursday of December. I want to say also that I appreciate you guys so much. I want to hear your takeaways. So leave me a takeaway over here. Like, what has been your takeaway from just being on this call? I know some of you guys have not actually read the book. What has been one piece that you're going to like really think on this week and then implement? And what is it going to look like when it comes to you taking action on that thing? Leave it for me in the comment. I also want to tell you, happy Thanksgiving. I am so thankful to have you here, watching this channel, leaning into our book clubs, watching all of our other videos, doing all of our live workshops, all those kind of things. I just appreciate you so much because, like I say, if you're a leader and you turn around and there's nobody following you, you're just going on a walk. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you for being on this journey with me, being willing to walk alongside me, and being willing to grow in a time and a place when we need leaders like you more than ever. I say this a lot because it's not the easy times, it's the hard times, but most people are not willing to lean in, to try it again, to give it one more shot, to give it one more rep, to take one more chance. And that's literally what you're doing by being here. I just want to say like how proud I am of you for being willing to lean in, for take that one more step, one more rep. And I want you to know that you are not doing this alone. Thank you for being a part of the Modern Leadership community. If you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe. Have an incredible, incredible Thanksgiving, and we'll see you guys real soon, all right? Have a great week, everybody. Bye.